In the year 2025, the world thinks it's moved past folklore, until bodies start turning up with their blood completely drained. The only witnesses are grainy smartphone videos that go viral overnight. That's where Dracula 2025 begins. It gets messy, modern, and a little too addicted to startup culture. We meet Dr. Elena Reyes, a brilliant but exhausted epidemiologist. She spends her days arguing with insurance algorithms and nights reading medieval texts. Old myths sometimes explain new diseases. She's introduced through an emergency call. A young woman found pale as porcelain in a Brooklyn loft. No sign of forced entry. Surveillance footage shows somebody, or something, moving through the apartment like a shadow. Elena's first instincts are medical. Her second, a cynical joke about vampires. It lands a little too close to a scared intern silence. She's skeptical, practical, tired of being the only person who thinks science can read between the superstition. Detective Marcus Lang is the cop on the beat, hard-faced, mid-30s, divorced, with a little resentment at how the city wastes brilliant people. Marcus is good at pattern recognition, bad at patience. He shows up at each crime scene with a skepticism that matches Elena's, but with less academic patience for fairy tales. They butt heads at first, because Elena's curiosity leads to unconventional leads and Marcus wants neat lines. Their chemistry makes you want to root for them when they reluctantly team up. Meanwhile, the antagonist moves through the city like a rumor wearing a tailored suit. He's Adrian Voss, a charismatic biotech billionaire who publicly sells longevity and secretly researches immortality. His philanthropic image gives him immunity. Behind that veneer, Adrian is ancient in a biological sense that defies science. He bleeds centuries and aches for sunlight in a way that reads almost poetic. The movie teases his history in fragments: a castle in Eastern Europe, a broken love story, an experiment gone wrong centuries ago, and a grudging adaptation to the neon glow of the 21st century. Early on, a tech angle emerges. A blood bank run by a Voss-funded project is hacked and drained, along with patient records. Synthetic blood, meant to help trauma victims, is stolen. The public starts whispering that someone is weaponizing scarcity. The internet goes into a spiral of meme-fueled panic. Elena and Marcus follow the trail to Voss Dynamics, only to find a glossy lobby and PR representatives who fast answer questions. The narrative uses the company as a mirror: corporate spin versus ancient hunger, polished facade versus something that moves through darkness. As the body count climbs, we meet Lucy Park, a freelance journalist whose live streams document scenes the mainstream outlets ignore. Lucy's camera is a moral compass of sorts. She covers injustice and tells the truth about who the victims are. Her footage becomes crucial when the victims' ages and backgrounds reveal a pattern. Young, healthy people with irregular sleep schedules, often employed by the gig economy. Convenient targets for a predator who thrives on isolation. Lucy and Elena form an uneasy friendship. One is trained to read data, the other to read the pulse of a city. Together, they stitch together threads that point toward one impossible conclusion. This is not a random killer. It's strategic, almost surgical. Van Helsing shows up, but not as the dusty professor with a cross. He's Professor Henry Van Helsing, a geneticist, whose research into viral vectors and nocturnal pathogen resistance took him from academic derision to half-respected conspiracy theorist. He has notebooks full of archaic symbols and modern schematics. His presence bridges the gap between superstition and lab coats. Henry's theory is stark: if vampirism is transmissible, it has mutated with humanity, hitching a ride on biotechnology and urban anonymity. He proposes, half bitter and half earnest, that what they face now is not a monster but an evolutionary niche predatory enough to exploit our newborn vulnerabilities. The middle of the movie tightens like a noose. Elena and Marcus dig into Adrian Voss's past and find records that refuse to add up. Funding rounds that predate the company's founding, ancient estate sales under different names, a ledger that lists purchases of rare reagents that have no legitimate medical use. Lucy follows a lead to an underground club that caters to the wealthy and lonely. The club's backrooms sell exclusivity, and inside, people whisper about night patrons and blood tastings. It reads like satire, only the snobbery turns lethal when a patron is discovered drained at an afterparty. The club's security footage is corrupted, but Luce's personal camera catches a figure slipping through a service door, Adrian's silhouette around which the light bends. The film does a good job giving Dracula motivation, beyond malice. Flashbacks stitch him to a lost lover and to a promise he made. To cheat death not just for himself but for a kind of immortality that spares no one. Yet spares him the loneliness. He's portrayed as tragic, almost gentle in quieter scenes. The sort of man who can be charming, witty, and monstrous on the same breath. That complexity keeps the movie from being a B-movie bloodfest. Instead, it becomes a meditation on power and what it does to empathy. Conflict deepens when Elena, researching vampire folklore, discovers an old codex. That hints at a genetic marker tied to vulnerability and resistance. It leads to a grim hypothesis. Vampires need a certain protein profile to extract nourishment efficiently, and human genetic diversity is their constraint. If Adrian can engineer a way to spread a compatible gene, he could make more like him. Or make humans dependent on VOS products. That's corporate apocalypse for you. Buy our product, or you don't survive the new world. The investigation culminates in a tense infiltration of VOS dynamics during a product launch party. Slick lights, influencers, and a demo that promises bloodless transfusions. Elena, Marcus, and Lucy pose as vendors and guests, moving through the crowd. Like predators of a different sort. The scene is catnip, glitzy, claustrophobic, and full of quiet terror where a handshake can be a death sentence. Van Helsing provides a few improvised tools, UV emitters repurposed from lab equipment, and a stake that looks more symbolic than practical. But the team presses on. Because they have no institutional backing and only each other. Confrontation is messy. Adrian's speech about progress and immortality is interrupted by a blackout. Orchestrated to test emergency protocols, the kind of showmanship you only see in a billionaire's dream. In the dark, the group is picked off, but not without resistance. Marcus discovers a wounded Adrian whose humanity flickers, a man who remembers a different life, and hates what he's become. In a moment of unexpected intimacy, Adrian explains his past. That reframes his cruelty as an experiment in survival. Elena, wary of easy sympathy, holds a mirror up to him and refuses to let his rhetoric reframe murder as progress. The final sequence is kinetic and ambiguous in equal measure. The team rigs the building with UV emitters, warehouse-level sunlight in a box, and confronts Adrian in the atrium as dawn approaches. There's violence, a scramble up an elevator shaft, and a sacrifice that costs someone dear. The climax doesn't rely on a single silver bullet. It's messy, improvisational, and grounded in human choices rather than mystical deus ex machina. The movie asks, is it enough to expose a monster, or do you need to change the system? That made him possible? What sticks is the ending, which refuses to be tidy. Adrian is exposed, physically and figuratively, but not eradicated. The city keeps spinning. The VOS empire reels, but legal systems protect wealthy men. In ways they seldom protect victims, and the biotech hasn't been UN invented. Elena returns to work with a new file on her desk and a bruise she can't name. Marcus takes a quiet drink with evidence that will probably get buried. And Luce's camera, tenacious as ever, posts a live stream that goes viral. For reasons both righteous and exploitative. The last shot blurs between hope and paranoia. A figure watching a sunrise, the kind that makes you squint, and a city that sleeps with one eye open. The film sprinkles small but effective humor throughout. Marcus's dry sarcasm. Luce's no-nonsense deadpan as she narrates a chaotic rooftop escape into her phone. Elena's muttered complaints about grant committees. Those moments prevent Dracula 2025 from becoming joyless. They humanize the people who must live with grief and confusion in a modern metropolis. That treats trauma like a trending hashtag. Ultimately, Dracula 2025 is less about monsters, and more about how modern institutions allow predation to wear a suit. It's an urban fable that uses contemporary anxieties about surveillance, biotech, and the commodification of health to give the classic vampire myth a relevant bite. The characters are flawed but believable. The villain is frightening because he mirrors our worst systems. And the movie leaves you thinking about power, complicity, and what it costs to fight. Something that doesn't go away at sunrise. So if you like your horror with social commentary, and a few grounded, human performances, Dracula 2025 delivers a tense, thought-provoking ride. It won't give you nostalgia for black capes and thunder. Instead, it gives you a city, where the night has its own economy and the predators know how to write good press releases. Blind optimism doesn't win here, but neither does nihilism. The film ends with a question. More than an answer, How do we protect the vulnerable in a world that moneizes survival? And that's the kind of thing that keeps you thinking, maybe too much, during the credits.